Like I was saying, that it has been said that you want to hide something from the black man, put it in a book. As that narrative change, are people taking more to reading now?
Well, thank you. I would like to say that that narrative has not really changed. And you look at the reading culture with regards to the economy, with regard to the exposure, with regards to the educational capacity of the country or the institution. It does not actually have to do with the black people or the black race. It's a general survey, because the reading culture is a pervasive thing, you know, where you train people, you train children to read at an early age. You catch them young. You know, you make the books available. You encourage the book culture, the book tradition. You know what reading does to children or to adults? There are so many benefits of reading. To put it in a nutshell, it broadens our outlook. It helps in managing stress. It exposes you to the world. You can sit in your locality and know what is happening in almost all the countries of the world, all the issues. You understand? So reading culture has not really changed. In fact, it has gotten a bit worse, because our investments in education, our budgets in education has not really improved. Because one, these books have to be available. There has to be libraries in different nooks and crannies, from the primary schools to the secondary schools to the tertiary level. And we don't want to talk much about the e-environment, the digital environment, but I think for now, I want to say that the culture, the reading culture, has not improved.
All right. According to the World Cultural Score Index, Nigeria is miscalled 38%, you know, when it comes to having people that are lettered. But let's go back to history. In the 60s, 70s, even the 80s, you discover that public reading, the issue of reading was like the order of the day. But look at the state of our libraries now. Could it be one of the factors responsible for this? If those era you have public libraries being patronized every day, but now technology has taken over and certain factors has made this thing to be things that are dwindling as we speak. What are the things responsible for these, and how can they be corrected for Africans to develop this reading culture?
Thank you so much. Very important question. You see, in the 70s, in the 80s, when we were still coming up as a country, we found out that there was the competition and the challenge among young people to read, to reach out to their worlds. So many states and local government had functioning libraries, well-equipped libraries. There were budget for libraries, and books were coming in from everywhere in the world. You can see how Nigerian literary landscape grew. We have profound and international writers like Chinua Achebe. We have Wole Soyinka, the great laureate. We have Ngugi wa Thiong'o from East Africa. We have Kenneth Kaunda from South Africa. From where we were growing up, we sat down here in our schools and we knew what was happening in South Africa. We knew about apartheid regime, because we read books like A Walk in the Night by Alex Lagoma. We read books by Amai Taadu. We had the Peseta series. We read books from Hadley Chase. And these books were available in most libraries. We were in school, we were competing to read them. I read a lot of series from Hadley Chase. There were so many other Robins and all that, and these books help us to grow and exposed us to the world around us. Not just novels and literature. You can read books on environments. When you read books on environment, you read books on history, you become a part of that culture. You don't need to be an environmental scientist to know about global warming and climate change. You understand? So books open up an individual. It helps the creative capacity of a person, of a child. And the more you read, the more the tendency to want to write, because you have now had a great intercourse with ideas. When you read, you become a participant in the intellectual world. You are no more ignorant. You know exactly what is happening. You know of world affairs. You know about the World War. You know about the First World War, the Second World War, and even the impending situations in politics and culture and tourism. So books, as we were told, as we were taught, there was no way to escape it, because if you are going to enter into your world in the future, you have to have intercourse with books. So now the investments in our libraries are very, very poor. If you go to some state libraries, it's been overtaken by rats. It's been overtaken by weeds. And events around the libraries have been reduced to the barest minimum, because our focus and our investment in education and in books has greatly reduced.
All right, but even like that, with the state of the libraries, these days there are e-books, and it should have been expected that would make it easy. Are there distractions that makes reading difficult in this time?
Now we're talking about the e-books? Yeah. Well, I believe that the e-books and the e-trends are very good, granting access to a wide variety of materials across the world. But I dare say that the e-environments can be very destructive, especially to young people or the young adults. Because one, we are looking at the technology, we are looking at the power situation, because most libraries now have e-sections. E-libraries, if we go to some university, have the e-library, find out that most of the time those libraries, those e-sections are not functioning. Why? Because of power outages. You know, these infrastructures, these IT equipment need steady light. And sometimes those infrastructures are vandalized by dubious students. So people still have to go back to taking their books to read. I'm not surprised when some religious establishment or some believe that you must open the book. You know, as you said rightly from the beginning, that if you have something in a book, you know, you see, if you look at the book of Daniel, Daniel said, I, Daniel, understood by books. So understanding is by books. You can now read your book and then have access to reference materials from different sources on the online, because some information online cannot be quite verified. So if you are doing a research per se, yes, online can be very good. But if you want to have a study to understand the book, to understand writing, to understand literature, to understand the world, you must engage yourself in habitual reading. Read, review, question, and analyze. So this is what we're talking about. The online environment is good, but we believe that government must encourage the setting up of book clubs. Set up book club, young book clubs, like we have the Channel Book Club, hope you know about that. And we also encourage government to make reading competitions on a regular basis. Part of the prize-winning programs for schools, primary schools, secondary schools, tertiary institutions, students should be encouraged. They should have a reading culture, a reading time. Just like you have the break time, we should have a reading, you know. There is something we call drop everything and read. The acronym, DEAR, drop everything and read. Maybe if it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes, every time in every school, we say, okay, this period is for reading. Trying to push the population, the students to know reading, and we can make these books available. I happen to belong to the network of book readers and reading promoters. And this is what we do to promote the reading culture across the spectrum of societies. We visit libraries, we donate books to libraries, books cutting across all disciplines. It's not just about science and technology, but we look at books in terms of, in a holistic approach. Science, technology, philosophy, ethics, sociology, economics, international affairs, you know. So it is so important that we begin to catch up with what we have lost and begin to make it as something that we used to have before. Make books available, whether it is new or old. People are collecting old books now. We are book collectors too. And then we send these books to schools because some of these students may not be able to afford some of these books now. You know, the African Writers series is getting out of extinction. You know, books by Chinua Achebe. Things Fall Apart, No Longer at Ease, Man of the People, and poems. We know we used to read George Orwell. You know?
But these days, the generation that we have now may not seem to like or to fancy such books. Is there a need for the writers to be creative and in their books reflect the time that we're in to make it attractive to read?
Now, writers write from the perspectives of their experience. And there are now innovations in book reading and book writing. There are special writers that write children's books. They tell all those stories to fit or to meet the needs, the desires, and the expectations of the young child. There are so many of those writers now, and we have access to them, and we get these books to meet with the students. So it's not just that the content of the write-ups are complicated or difficult, it's just that the passion, the interest in the book has dwindled. So we encourage teachers, English teachers and teachers all, and even we encourage parents, because when parents read, the children will likely follow suit to read. But if, as a parent, you don't read, they don't see you reading, whether it's for fun or for study or for education, your child might not lose interest. What is paramount is that we must continue to read, and our children should be encouraged to read. And they should also be encouraged to write. We have children poetry sessions, children that write poems. We give them books to read, we ask them to choose. Some of them might want to read about William Shakespeare, Shakespeare's tragedies, Shakespeare's drama, Macbeth, Othello, and the rest, Midsummer Night Dream. Some might want to read about Elechi Amadi, the great poems, like great Nigerian writers. Some might want to read about Jack Onana's daughter. Some might want to read about Buchi Emecheta. We used to have the Peseta series, short stories well underlined with the plot and the theme to fit with the environment of the young child or the growing teenagers. Those books are going extinct. Our job now is to try to rediscover where we missed it. Like when Achebe wrote that he has written his book to let us to know where the rain began to beat us. So we begin to retrace our steps and see how we can get our young ones to embrace the reading culture and then be able to make viable and useful contributions to society. Because if you are not reading, if you are not studying, if you are not having contact with books, there is no way you can expand the horizon of your thought and your learning and then make useful contributions to society. In fact, if you are not very good in reading, you may not be able to make academic success in some unique fields of studies, because studying and reading, they go together.
All right. I like the fact that you made reference to the role of parents, which it's very critical. I remember my own experience. The first set of books I was exposed to was handed over to me by my father. But let's look at this trend where there are people who feel the technology has taken over. Do you see hard copy, going out of circulation? And what kind of incentives do you think the federal government can put in place to encourage publishers and even writers?
Now, governments can play a very strategic role in encouraging publishers and writers. One, we must go back to establish our printing press. We used to have the paper industry that was very viral. We used to have the Nigerian newsprint, a manufacturing company. These people used to come up with materials for journalists, for newspapers, for text and materials, but those establishments have gone moribund. That is one. Then Nigeria, the government also can impact or make inputs, partner with the Nigerian Publishers Association. We have the Nigerian Publishers Association. These are people who are publishing books for primary, for secondary, and for tertiary institutions. There are so many of them across the country. Government can partner with them and see how they can secure funds to finance the publishing of key books, selected books for Nigerian children and for our reading. Government can also partner with the Nigerian Booksellers Association.